Ahoy hoy, I'm Planet Walk, and welcome back to part 1 of the Nigel Cheesy Hands debunk video. 1 + 1 = 1, so we're still on part 1 obviously. But before I get into it, there are two things that I need to address. In my last video on Nigel Cheese, I made a mistake and said degrees Kelvin. I know it's supposed to just be Kelvin, but I have a habit of just saying degrees whenever I talk about temperature. And the second thing is that there were a lot of people that were commenting saying that Nigel is clearly just trolling everybody and I've fallen for bait. And I do admit that the stuff that Nigel says is pretty out there and is something that a troll would try and say. And honestly, me doing what I do on YouTube, sometimes it can be quite difficult for me to tell whether someone is joking or whether they're actually serious about all the stupid stuff they're saying. For example, when I first heard about Flat Earth, I thought that it was just a joke. I thought that there was no way that people could actually take it seriously. And I was wrong. Now when it comes to the question of, is Nigel Cheesy Hands just trolling? And the answer is, he could be, but I don't think that he is. Now the reason why I don't think he's a troll is because of two words. Free energy. Now what this means is that Nigel Cooper Cheesy Hands is trying to sell free energy products. And when you're trying to sell that kind of product, I don't think that you're trolling. Now whether he's being sincere or not about what he says, I don't have access to the guy's mind, I can't tell you, but I'm going to act like he is. So hopefully everything has been clarified, and with that, let's get into it.
I then went on to screw another man called Sir Isaac Newton.
Oh that's right, we're getting a preview of Cheesy Hands' OnlyFans, aren't we?
Sir Isaac Newton turned around and says, gravity stuff.
I mean, he also said quite a bit about other things in physics, and didn't he invent calculus?
Gravity is something that goes down, makes you and I stick onto the ground, that's what we've been told, makes the apple fall from the tree and all the rest of the things, when aeroplanes fall out of the sky, if there's no fuel. And he said that the force is equal to the mass acceleration, which is equal to the mass and gravity, which is equal to 9.81 meters per second squared.
So he is almost correct here. If he were to say force equals mass times acceleration, which equals mass times gravity, which is equal to mass times 9.81 meters per second per second. Am I being a bit nitpicky? Yeah, but 9.81 meters per second is not a force, it's an acceleration. If you times it by mass, then it's a force.
Well, hold on. In our case, that's 0. And as it's not going down, that is 0.
I see that he has clearly taken a leaf from flat earthers. Just because something isn't moving does not mean that gravity is not acting upon it. Gravity does not mean that everything just collapses into a black hole. What he should be doing is he should be adding forces together and then calculating the net force.
Therefore, F is equal to 0 times 0 equals 9.81 meters per second. Oops.
So the acceleration due to gravity is still 9.81 meters per second squared. The issue is that there are other forces acting upon it, namely the magnetic force and friction. The magnetic force keeps it attached to the whiteboard, meanwhile friction stops it from sliding all the way down to the bottom. The result of all these forces acting upon the magnet means that the net force acting upon the magnet is 0 and therefore the magnet does not accelerate in any direction. I know that I overused this line in the last video on Nigel Cheesy Hands, but if he really had a PhD in physics, he should know that.
Chief Petty Officer Hands, do you know what you've actually done? Yep.
I feel like you're getting asked that question because there are so many mistakes that you've made, and they were wanting to know if you realised the mistakes.
Those officers in the Royal Navy who think they're actually better than you. I was just a lowly Irk, and I beat all the physicists and all the engineers and all the electronics engineers. 2 magnets.
Hold on, I thought it was 1 magnet and not 2 magnets. Also, what he just said right there was basically him admitting that he suffers from severe Dunning-Kruger without saying that he suffers from severe Dunning-Kruger. There is only one person that I've seen that is as top left as Nigel is, and that is Bargain Basement Fred Durst.
It's made with a laser, with a gyroscope, and it has a motor.
They don't spin.
It's a giant one on a ship, and
Holy
they
cow.
swing in a pendulum because of the
Holy
ocean.
cow.
It's half of a dome is a sphere.
That is only a small sampling of how bad Jason can get. He can get way worse than what I've shown there. But Nigel is starting to catch up.
And then turn around and says, well, I can go even better than that.
That was not an invitation for you to actually try and catch up, Nigel.
Because you actually say the Holy Grail is that. It's cold fusion. How to get energy at room temperature without doing anything. Oh, you can't actually get it, it's impossible. And I went, cold fusion.
I really hope, for the sake of everyone's sanity here, that he does not mean what I think he means by that.
There's energy holding that on the board. It's cold, it's at room temperature. You're getting more out than you're putting in. You're not putting any in it, and there's energy because it's held in there and it's defying gravity. It's cold fusion.
Oh dear God, he did mean what I thought he meant. I was hoping that he didn't actually mean it, but he did. I'm going. What language is not doing the language thing because I've lost too many brain cells. Roll the break thing. I need to take a break. Alright, so basically what he said there is that a magnet sticking to a whiteboard is cold fusion. He seems to think that cold fusion is doing nothing to get energy out of something at room temperature, which isn't what cold fusion is, by the way. Cold fusion would still require you to actually do something, to actually put energy into the system in order to get energy out of it. But more importantly, the fusion part of cold fusion does not mean, oh, we get energy out of this. No, it means that you fuse two atoms together. And no, Nigel, putting two magnets together is not the same thing as putting two atoms together, just in case he tries to pull that. And also, I'm going to say it again, but sticking a magnet to a whiteboard does not actually produce energy. That is something that a physicist would know. And also, I didn't realize that he was going to bring up free energy in this video. I haven't seen the entire video yet, so I thought it was just, debunking random things. The only reason I know about his whole free energy thing is because he has a website to try and sell products about his whole free energy thing.
And they go, I don't understand that. Well, you're the one with all the degrees and the A-levels and you're the physicists and the mathematicians and you can't even work that out. It doesn't make you very clever, does it?
It's probably more that they're at a complete loss as to how you reached the conclusion that you did. Sounds like a particular flat earther.
I said, well, I can actually go one better.
So whenever he says that now, I actually get worried. What is he gonna say next?
Because when you play with a magnet and you understand a magnet, and you understand that the magnetic fields, there isn't two, north and south, there's four.
Wait, so is he saying that there are four magnetic poles on a magnet? You've got north and south that everyone knows about, but east and west have just been hiding from scientists whenever they try to look for them. Is that it?
So if we take our four magnetic fields and we'll have, shall we say, there's the first one, like that, as a north. Obviously it goes in the loop. And we've got one there as the south. And the red comes off on a loop, as we know, like that. And the blue comes off on a loop. Oh, sorry. like that.
Wait, what's this about gravity being zero again? Didn't you say something about that earlier? You have to admit that the irony there is just really funny. But back to seriousness. That's the thing that we saw in the last video, isn't it? That diagram that has no bearing in reality as far as I can tell. It seems like it's just a diagram that he's stolen from Ken Wheeler or something like that.
We've got 4 magnetic fields. 2 that you play with, which is north and south, and 2 that you didn't even know existed.
You mean magnetic poles, right? Because, and excuse my bad use of the term magnetic field, a magnet only produces one magnetic field.
The 2 in the middle are known as the magnetotoroidal field. It's a Doppler field. It goes like this, so sometimes you see it towards you, sometimes you don't, like that.
Wait, Ken Wheeler, when did you get here?
Fundamentally understanding that the voluminous nature of the universe, because the voluminous nature of the universe is only extant because of magnetism only, because the after effect of a divergent magnetic field, like the loss of energy or inertia, the dielectric, manifests as magnetism.
Ken, that wasn't your cue to start spouting nonsense, okay? You may think that I'm joking about, oh, it just sounds like something that Ken Wheeler would say, but actually, the top result when I search magnetotoroidal fields is a Ken Wheeler video. You cannot make this up. Anyway, Ken Wheeler, you do have to leave, but whilst you're here, do you have any words for everyone, especially Nigel Cheesy Hands?
I mean, if people believed me, then they would of course be crazy.
Thank you, Ken. If you believe what Ken Wheeler says, then you'd of course be crazy. Much like Nigel Cheesy Hands here.
The Doppler effect of the fire engine and the train whistle going past when it changes in frequency. Meow. Yeah, that shift in frequency is called Doppler. And it occurs here all the time.
You know, the Doppler effect is caused by movement. If a magnet isn't moving, then how can there be a Doppler effect?
Well, because I know that there's actually 4 magnetic fields.
You know, for a second, I thought that he was actually going to try and, you know, explain how there can be a Doppler effect on a stationary magnet, but I've clearly learnt nothing from watching Ken Wheeler's videos. You know, occasionally he'll apply a word to something without actually explaining how that word applies to that thing. You know, harmonic incommensurability, that kind of jazz.
Can we now utilise the fact that there are 4 fields? And I went on to demonstrate, this was all recorded on a video by the way, that the Royal Navy's got. I actually assembled 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I put 10 magnets on there.
Wait, don't you mean one magnet? Because if you add one magnet and another magnet, you're only left with one magnet. That's what you said earlier.
And some professor put his hand, I don't know who he was. Well, why are you using 10? And I said, well, you've only got 10 fingers. I doubt if you can actually count any higher right now. That was a perfect insult to upset everybody in the theatre.
Or maybe it's Nigel that can't count above 10, and that's why he says that 1 + 1 = 1, to stop himself from ever having to count above 10.
But they looked, okay, what's he doing? Well, if we got 10 magnets like that, north and south, all glued together, we've got a north here and a south here. And if we apply the 1 + 1, we've got 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 1.
Oh, he is saying that he's just got one magnet. I thought that he was just going to completely ignore what he said earlier, but at least he's got some form of consistency, although he still said that he had 10 magnets, even though it should really just be one magnet.
They wanted to know what I'd done, so I done that.
Yeah, but what's the point of that? What is the point of sticking 10 magnets together to get one magnet, and how does that relate to 4 magnetic fields? Or is it one magnetic field, because if you stick 4 magnetic fields together, you just get one magnetic field? Is that what you're going to go with next?
Well, okay, if we now consider this as a length, if this was 10 millimetres, and 10 and 10 and 10 and 10 and 10, we'd have 100 millimetres.
Oh, we're ignoring 1 + 1 = 1 again. You know, this guy's really inconsistent in how he applies his maths.
Or we could have 1 kilometre, we could have 10 kilometres. It doesn't matter as long as we've got a value. we can determine that value as the good old-fashioned 1. And it's actually divided by time, because you start there at 0 in time and you end here at 0 plus x of time, don't you?
Wait, when did we start running a marathon? Because time was never mentioned at all in relation to this. Where did that come from?
Jump in a car, drive from A to B, you started at one time, ended at the other. Difference between the two is the time. So, the frequency of the event, or equals F equals 1 over T. And I said, well, remember them 4 fields that we had? And I'm just going to do a double in one colour, like that. They went, yeah. I said, well, if we now look at this and we have all these as individuals, when you take 2 circles, like so, they connect here at the atomic level, at the very, very small bit, 1 atom wide, or 1 molecule, or 1 part of the whole surface of the magnet. That means the whole magnetic, all of the magnetic energy in that body, that's trying to get in that body, in Vicky Verky, has to go through there, through that 1 dot.
Wait, is he trying to say that magnetic fields work like electricity and you basically need a conductor? I don't think that's how magnetic fields work. When you stick 2 magnets together, the reason why the magnetic field seems to extend through the magnet is not because of some charge moving between them. It's because the magnetic domains are all aligned. When the magnetic domains in something are aligned, you end up with a magnet. That's why if you take, let's say, a bar of iron, and it's not magnetic, you stick it to iron, it doesn't stick together, and you wrap a coil around it, and then pass a charge through that coil, the charge in that coil will align the magnetic domains in that iron, creating an electromagnet.
And it's infinitely small. And what you actually got is 1, 2, 3, 4 magnetic fields trying to get through the space that will only permit 1. So 3 of them are going to go a bit bonkers.
Magnetic fields don't have to get through anything. What are you even talking about?
And I found out that if you take this magnetic body and turn it upside down, it's still south and it's still north. But this one is now here and that one's there. It's against its own principle.
So I couldn't find the other one of these magnets that I had. It's probably around somewhere else, but I've got this magnet. So if I put these 2 magnets together, there's supposed to be some east-west field there or something. Now, if I flip this one over, how come that whole east-west field changes? Shouldn't it be that the east-west field of one magnet changes? Because if I flip this magnet over, they're now both pointing in the same direction, yet the east-west field is back to the way that it started. Despite them both being upside down, the east-west field is the same as when they were both right side up. His whole east-west field thing makes no sense really when you think about it for more than a second.
And I also found out, being a rather intrigued person, if you take 3 and you flip the middle one, the energy level does that. You've still got north and you've still got south.
What I want to know is, how did you actually know what the energy levels were? What did you actually use to measure the energy levels? Or did you just go, oh yeah, this looks like the energy levels are this, or something like that? Come to think of it, how did he also figure out that there's an east and west pole on a magnet when no one else has managed to find those east and west poles?
What happens if you do 4? Well, if you do 4, you get nothing, because you get 2 lots of 2. One cancels each other out.
Wait, doesn't that mean that if you have 2 magnets, then it should also cancel each other out? It really does sound like you're saying, oh, this is what happens because it's what I say should happen, or something like that.
So I tried 5. And I put 5 together and it worked. And I kept going up until I got to 10, and I found out that if I kind of ignore the last one and make it slightly out of phase, I can concentrate one of these, say the green one, yeah, and the other one was black. I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's the middle. I can make the toroidal field extend greater than the body of the magnet.
And what is this toroidal field that you're going on about? I hear a lot of pseudoscientists talking about it, but none of them actually seem to tell me what exactly it is. And I know people will probably go, well, clearly you're stupid because it's obviously a field in the shape of a toroid, you idiot. But saying toroidal field doesn't describe anything about it beyond its shape. What does this toroidal field even do?
And they went, scared. I said, well, it's more complicated than that, because if you see go back and have a look at some of my work, you'll see that this is bidirectional. So there's another one going the other way. Okay? And that means that that one goes to there. And that one goes to there. Like that.
What does it mean by goes to there? Does it bend there or does it move back and forth? Is it just already there, so it's just north and south, or what? The problem that I have with Nigel here is one of the exact same problems that I have with Ken Wheeler. The difference between Nigel and Ken Wheeler is that Ken Wheeler uses a whole lot of word salad, whereas Nigel doesn't. There is also the fact that Nigel does say some evidently stupid stuff, whereas with Ken Wheeler it's not so obvious when he's saying stupid stuff, mostly because of the word salad.
The problem we've got here is when we go back to E equals MC squared, where that is 3 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second.
Oh, he's bringing it all back together. Let's see how he gets things wrong again.
The speed of light, and it's also line of sight. Yeah? Goes one direction, yeah, like that. You can't bend light, they say. Have a look at some of my videos, some of my toys. I'll bend light because it's fun.
Okay, so there's two things to unpack here. The first is, who says that you can't bend light? Everyone agrees that refraction is a thing. You know, refraction does bend light, and I think that everyone agrees that refraction bends light. I don't see who disagrees with that. The second is, how is a speed a line of sight? A line of sight is a direction, isn't it? And speed doesn't have a direction.
Well, to me, that's not a straight line. That's a curve. Line of sight. Wrong.
Wait, who calls c squared the line of sight? And what does that have to do with the toroidal field?
If you know what you're doing, you can bend light.
Wait, is he going to say that a magnetic field can bend light because of a ferrocell or something like that? It feels like as this video has been going on, this guy's just been slowly turning into Ken Wheeler.
The next thing to consider is this value here. There. If we're talking t, time, on this equation at 0, we've now got an equation that says I don't go anywhere. So it fails this equation. You start scratching your head, hold on a second, you're going nowhere, in no distance, against its linear state. The equation collapses. I said, no it don't. Turn it on its side. Yeah?
Either A, I've completely missed something, or B, he just hasn't explained how time plays into this at all. When you're giving a lecture or you're explaining something, you have to actually explain what the things are that you're adding in, and why you're adding them in. Time is being added in. What does time have to do with anything? Or is it just being added in to waste my time? I don't know, he didn't explain it. I'm just going to assume that it is being added in to waste my time. He also mentioned frequency. What frequency are we talking about? What does that have to do with it? Why are we talking about things that don't appear to have anything to do with the concepts that he's talking about?
So when you turn it on its side, you have to make the linear equivalent of what's going on. And the linear equivalent of that is there. At 3. So that one is linear, and it's based on pi, as we said, because pi, if you now put a square in there, like that, pi is greater.
Wait, how are each of those pi again? Shouldn't they each be half of pi, not pi? It really sounds like he's gone, well, pi has something to do with a circle, so if it's circular, then it must be pi or something. Never mind the actual nuances of what pi is.
But we've got a bigger problem. And that's for the fact that the origin here to the centre there forms a triangle.
I think I know the problem here. You asked Anthony Riley to try and solve that triangle, didn't you? And he pulled up a triangle calculator and says, well, either you're lying or the triangle calculator is lying.
Let's do this again. Anthony, a triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles? Is somebody recording this? Because this is just priceless.
Well, the one I'm using it's not giving me any when I do it. So either this calculator is wrong or you're wrong.
And this triangle is bound by a squared, b squared, c squared, where a squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is the line of sight.
So on the plus side, at least he knows the Pythagorean theorem, but on the downside, I get the feeling that he's going to think that c squared in a triangle somehow relates to c squared and mc squared. I really hope that I'm wrong here. Until he really indicates that that's what he's thinking, I'm going to assume that he doesn't think that, but it wouldn't really surprise me at this point if he is thinking that way.
Hold on, but this line here is longer than the line of sight. It is longer than the length of A. It means that within inside this configuration of 10 magnets, what we have here is half of time and another half of time.
Wait, so because an arc is longer than a line, that means that we've got half of time. I mean, how does one follow from the other?
Here, you've got time minus time of x, because it's shorter than time. Here, you have time plus time of x. And here, you have time plus time of pi, and here you have time plus time of pi plus the ellipse.
So we've got a few issues here. He's got time and then time of x. That's fine. But then he goes ahead and labels c squared as time plus time of x, when it should really be the square root of time squared plus the time of x squared. But that's not it. He then goes ahead and labels that dotted arc as time plus the time of pi, when it can really just be the time of x times pi divided by 2. As for the elliptical arc, I do not know how to calculate that. But seeing as he's got the circular arc wrong, then I'm pretty sure he's gotten the elliptical arc wrong too, unless he by chance happened to get it correct.
Well, you've been told time's static. How many lots of time do you want?
So I seem to have forgotten the point at which he said, you know, this is why we're introducing time to this. Because it seems like, to me, that he just went, okay, so we've got time here, and now we've got frequency, which is 1 over time. And we're going to bring in half of time, and half of time, and time of x, and time of pi, and time of this, that, and the next thing. Have as much time as you want. We've just got a whole lot of time. Despite the fact that I don't know why time is there in the first place. Like, why are we even talking about time if we haven't even established why time is even there? And how do all these different values for time mean that time is not static? If it takes me an hour to get to one place, and then it takes me 2 hours to get to another place, that doesn't change whether time is static or not.
Everyone exists simultaneously. You cannot have a constant here if that distance is not equal to that.
So what you're saying is that we cannot have a speed of light if a distance that you've made up is not equal to another distance. It'd be like me saying we cannot have a speed of cars if the distance between the Earth and the Moon is not the same as the distance between me and a unicorn, and the distance between me and a unicorn is 1 kilometer, so there is no speed of cars.
All of these are all different to E equals mc squared. It means that time as a constant is not. It also means that 3 times 10 to the power of 8 with inside a magnet does not exist. It means mass and energy of a magnetic body defies Einstein. It defies gravity. And it defies first and second laws of thermodynamics. Sorry, the nuclear bit.
The issue here is that you've just made stuff up. There's so many missing steps in there that it's impossible for me to even know how you got from one point to another. At least when it came to the first video, whilst the stuff that you're saying there was completely insane, it was stuff that I could go, okay, yeah, I can kind of get how you might reach this conclusion if you conflate this with this and conflate that with that. In this section, however, is just jumping from one thing to another without any explanation of why you're doing so, and then also on top of that, making stuff up that doesn't even exist, like an east and west pole of a magnet, and then saying, because of all that, that means that Einstein is wrong, despite you apparently having already debunked Einstein, so you don't really need to do that again. And to top it all off, none of what you've said proves anything about a magnet, because you're just writing random stuff down and saying random stuff.
Well, I said, well, where are you going with this? I said, I haven't even started yet.
Did you think that he was finished? No, he's only about halfway through. I'm surprised too. This is like the Lord of the Rings trilogy and just drags on forever. He's just finished the bit where he rambles about time like a crazy person.
If we go back to our magnets here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we tweak it, right? Let's make it 11. Right? In fact, we'll make it 12.
So let's just decide on a number of magnets and not tweak it after that, okay?
We can take 3 and we can change a field. We can take 3 and we can change a field. We can take 3 and we can change a field, and we can take 3 and change a field. How many fields in a magnet? Ah, not 2, 4. Ooh, hold on a second. If you've got north coming out there and you've got south coming out there, and you can extrapolate 4 here, it means that 2 of these, one must be north and one must be south, and it must loop on itself like that.
So because we've got like 4 different east-west fields that we've created, one of them becomes a north and one of them becomes a south and loops back in north and south? Wouldn't it make more sense if the east-west fields, these 2 fields that you've made up, were to loop back in on east-west fields? That makes a whole lot more sense to me.
Which is what you've seen when we had that. And you had that, you had 2 ways, one going that way and one going that way. But by doing it this way, by adding an extra 2, you can now extract these 2 fields.
But if the east-west fields looped back on themselves, like you'd probably expect, then you wouldn't get that, would you? Instead, you've decided that, oh, one of them becomes a north somehow, the other one becomes a south somehow. There's no reason why, it just happened.
That one is swallowed up to the north south, that one's swallowed back to the north. These 2 haven't got a clue where they're going. But guess what? That's a plus and that's a minus.
Oh, he's finally attached a label to what I've been calling east and west. Apparently it's not east and west, it's positive and negative.
And if you take a circuit like that and put it on an LED, Guess what the LED does? It lights up from a row of magnets.
So, I would very much like to test what he's saying, but I will need to get a few magnets and some LEDs. I don't have either of them. Well, I have magnets, but not enough. And if you want to help me out, you can send me a few bucks through Super Chat while this is premiering, or you can send me a few bucks through Patreon, and that will help me get some magnets and some LEDs. But if there is a next part in the series, then that's when I'd probably do the test. As I said, that's if there is a next part. I'm not sure whether I want to make a next part with the amount of brain cells that I've lost from this part. But if this part gets, let's say, 2,000 likes, then I'll make another part. If not, then we'll just see what happens. But whether there is another part or not, I'll still do the test because it seems like it will be interesting. I know that it's not going to work though.
It was at that point they went stop, 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 stop. And I went, well, why have I got to stop? If you can produce light like that from an LED off a set of magnets, then we don't need oil on the planet. I went, yeah, you don't need it. Well, you know that oil actually drives the currency in the form of the tax dollar, tax pound, tax euro. Yeah. But if there's no tax, there's no government. Well, yeah, there is a government. It just means you don't have enough money for the war machine, which is you lot.
I don't think Nigel understands tax that well because you can tax anything. You can tax, like, wealth, you can tax income. In fact, people do get taxed off their income. You can even tax, like, assets held, such as capital gains. There's a whole lot of ways to make money through tax. You don't just need to tax oil. And besides, there are a lot of countries that are shifting away from oil because oil is not necessarily a sustainable resource. So what are they going to tax? They're obviously going to tax something. It's probably going to be something like income or wealth. But I think I'll end it here because we've made it about halfway through the stuff. If this video gets 2,000 likes, oh, and people need to actually, you know, ask for a part 3 for me to make a part 3. If no one's asking for a part 3, then I'm not going to do it. Oh wait, no, not a part 3, it would be a part 1, because, you know, 1 + 1 + 1 = 1, so it would still be part 1. But anyway, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you like this video, and ring the bell notification icon so that you actually get notified of when I post new videos. I'm gonna get some sleep, so I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching.